Our next speaker is Mr. Ali Saleh. He's the General Manager and Chief Commercial Officer for General Electric in Middle East, Africa, and Turkey. He's been with General Electric for 20 years or so, and he's starting in the US and working his way through all the way to the Middle East. He has a Master of Science in Systems Engineering and a Bachelor of Science in Electrical Engineering from the University of Maryland, and he's with us here today to tell us all about the digital transformation of industry. There you are.
Good afternoon. For the next 20 minutes, I'll share with you a story about GE digital transformation. General Electric has been on Dow Jones for over 100 years. We're known for generating power in oil and gas, healthcare, aviation, transportation, and many other industries. We have embarked on a journey to become the digital industrial company. So 5 years ago, our chairman, or 6 years ago, our chairman concluded that anybody can produce a spare part now with a 3D printer and a 4D printer. And it's critical that we focus on the digital age. We've been always innovating in applications within our modality, within our verticals, within our business, but it's important that we get the industries to leverage it. So we created in Silicon Valley a software center of excellence, and we started to bring all of our engineers from across businesses to one single place. And we said, you need to work together and work on one common app development. And what we concluded with is that it's critical to have interoperability platform. Because even within GE, we've got islands of data and applications all over the place, and the same for customers. If you look at Johns Hopkins as an example, one of our customers, today we've got a command center where we fetch data from 180 applications they have and allow them to have live reporting of metrics for patients that are walking down the hallways now, not on statistics that happened before. So what we did, we created a platform that we call Predix that cuts across all of our businesses, and we launched this as a business a year ago, and this business is called GE Digital. This one-year business is today $6 billion, and we committed to investors to be $20 billion over the next 3 years. What is it all about? What do we do? When we talk to our customers, their biggest pain point is driving productivity. And productivity is getting low and low in the industry. And there is need to innovate on how we drive productivity and costs out. Yesterday, I was having dinner with somebody in Riyadh before I took a flight here. Very successful businessman, one of the largest families in Saudi. They're top of mind, take costs out, drive growth, but drive it through digitization. And he's talking about something where he wants to have chief digital officer. And this is a new terminology. They've always been deploying ERPs and apps, but they want the culture to change. And they're talking about culture and transformation. And this is the beginning of understanding the key for fetching data from their assets. Mr. Aboud alluded to it earlier. What we've noticed in the region here is that no one is fetching data from the industrial asset. The industrial asset is as smart as any other asset. It's a data center. One aircraft engine for one flight generates 1 terabyte of data. And if that engine flies 5 times a day and multiplied with 20,000 flights taken off all over the place, you're talking about enormous data. And that data tells the owner a lot of things that is relevant. But no one is fetching that data, and no one is analyzing that data. Let me give you another example that's relevant, and I'll give you more examples down the line. If you look at a CT scan or an MRI or an X-ray, the machine is smart enough to tell you, I'm going to go down. It gives you an error log that tells you, I'm going to go down soon because there is something wrong with the power fluctuation, or I've consumed my X-ray tube life cycle. Or not only this, it tells you how much we're radiating the patient and whether the technician that's clicking on the protocol is variating from the American Radiology Society, and thus the patient spending more time on the scanner. So what does it mean from data? The same machine in one hospital can do 10 CT scans a day. The same exact machine in another hospital can do 400 CT scans a day. Now, obviously, time and everything else matter, but the machine gives you all this data, and no one is fetching it, and no one is analyzing. So we said it's important to focus our energy around the assets and drive asset performance management. We have our own application. We even acquired Meridian recently as a leader asset performance management, but we also drove a number of new applications from Brilliant Manufacturing and many others. In our view, the app development is going to continue, and is going to continue by third party, non-GE. What's relevant is for us to create this platform where ecosystem of developers will bring apps and create apps to create value for the enterprise. And where we're going to be successful when the enterprise start to develop their own modules on top of this platform. And we collaborate with leading ERP vendors and an ecosystem of companies to make it successful. We gave a number of examples today on Uber. If you switch to Apple, Apple is one of the largest profitable app making money in globally. They have 12 apps. Airbnb, they're the largest hotel. They do not own one hotel. And it's all about the app development and ability to use data and use it appropriately. So it's here, it's now, it's not the future, it's happening as we speak. When we talk to owners of industry leaders, what they tell us top of mind for them is cost, access, and quality. And what we've noticed, a paradigm shift in our region. Not long ago, everyone was talking about access, and only access. We want more buildings, more infrastructure, and more planes. No one was talking enough about quality. With populism raising, everyone was talking about quality. We want citizens to be happy. With the economy now, everyone's talking about cost and taking cost out. Thus, data cuts across wing to wing. And in our philosophy on digital transformation, you need to look at culture, operating system, job description, goals and objectives. You need to look at process, whether process is defined, optimize the process. But more importantly, the industrial entitlement. It's a language that only industry leaders know it and understand it. And you just cannot get it anywhere else. Another example I'll give you, if you look at benchmarking the same CT scan I mentioned with the protocol, it just tells you this technician is off track. He's using a protocol that's not standard. And thus the patient is staying in that CT scan for an hour as opposed to 20 minutes. This costs a lot of money. And this is data. So you've got the ERP, you've got utilization of resources, you've got the machine being used, but this data, you can get it from the machine, and the industrial entitlement gives you the benchmark you need to allow you to make the right decision at the right time. So how are we deploying it? The first thing we committed to investors, we said we're going to drink our own Kool-Aid, and we've got 400 factories around the world. 75 of them have adopted the Brilliant Manufacturing. And the way we do it, we look at current state, desired state, heat map, and we digitize, we deploy the tools, but also we look at the processes and areas to improve throughout. And then we went after our customers. In our region here, we sell $18 billion a year. And if you look at it, and if you look at industrial assets, they're 20 years lifespan. And if let's assume we've got 50% market share, that means we're sitting on $800 billion of assets for few industrial accounts. And for the solution we deploy it for GE and non-GE assets, and it's relevant. 1% 1% fuel efficiency for power plant in a country like Egypt translates to $6 billion saving for 10 years. That's significant. And the way you achieve that, you send engineers to walk the hallways, to look at the plant, to look at the pain point, digitize, make sure supply equal demand, do the digital grid, smart grid, and do it in a way where you reduce downtime, and at the same time you look at fuel efficiency, and you drive throughput to the industry. So it is here, it's always been there, but we never looked at it because things were going well, and maybe the ecosystem of infrastructure wasn't the same it is now. So this is happening around the region. If you go to Pakistan in Engro, if you go to Rasgas in Qatar, you go to Saudi Electricity Company in Saudi, Aramco with oil wells, it's just happening now as we speak, and these are solutions that are deployed in our region. Since we're here in the business school, what does it mean for us? In my opinion, it's all about disruptive business models. And that's what we call the digital thread. So yes, we are deploying smart machines, and the smart machines tell you what's happening, and the smart machines have redundancy, and if and when an X-ray tube, as an example, is going to go down, we should have redundancy in it, and it's not a single point of failure, and when you're doing preventive maintenance next time, you can replace it. But then you're deploying apps to fetch data and analyze it, you're using the cloud, and the cost to serve gets reduced dramatically. And again, another example, instead of deploying hardware in every single primary healthcare clinic, you can leverage the cloud to deploy it, and the cost to serve is lower. And yes, we're seeing a trend where no CapEx, it's more OpEx. And this is where organizations now can afford to pay for the solution as part of the savings they're making. But more importantly, we need to link it back to manufacturing and the design and service. And this is a digital thread. So without looking at the culture, process, industrial entitlement, and only focus on deploying a tool, you're not going to get the output and productivity that you need. So that's what we call Predix. It's the industrial cloud. That's where we're making the bet. That's where we're making progress. This is where the investors are rewarding us. It cuts across wing to wing. The solutions vary by industry. We collaborate with systems integrators, with telcos. We collaborate with ERP vendors. It's all about the enterprise being successful. It's not about us. It's about the enterprise transforming. And it's a journey, and it's iterative, and you drive it, one quarter at a time, and you have specific milestones for it. We've got many partners around the world and in the region. Some are local, some are global. We're getting them trained to develop apps on Predix, and we're connecting them to the asset, and we're collaborating together. Without us being able to fetch that data, we're not going to be able to deliver on the value prop for sure. So that's what it takes, and you can do that within the enterprise by keeping local traffic local, and you do it at the cloud level to maximize collaboration. In our part of the world, the biggest challenge we're facing is the regulation, because cross-data border sharing is not clear. Today it's a go, tomorrow it's not. It impacts your strategy day and night. In some countries, we talk to officials, and they tell us, no problem, I can host my data in the US. 3 months later, say, no, we've got a bill, now you cannot do it, and it just impacts the go-to-market, impacts the solution. So we're thinking about that, and we're including it in the technology and topology that we deploy. Some examples, I mentioned a few customers. I'll mention a few more. If you look at Enoch in Dubai, it's an opportunity for a fleet to look at oil status of a ship. And under harsh conditions, these industrial assets perform differently. The same for aircraft engine. Aircraft engine that's performing in the desert, completely different than performing in a cold country with a lot of snow, and how the blades react to it. So the data tells you what to do, and it impacts design and engineering. So to solve for the quality of oil, instead of us sending it to the lab, we brought the GE store, which is the innovation center that we've got and a lot of the IP, and we parachuted a bank of sensors to measure a number of variables and send it through VSAT and allow them to make a decision live whether the oil quality is proper or not, it needs to be changed or not. And this is a very small example of using data and using the GE store to connect wing to wing. If you look at the ERP, you look at the industrial asset, wherever you look, data is there, no one is fetching it, no one is analyzing it. We're counting on the CIO for the enterprise to do it, and the CIO of the enterprise is focusing on the top priorities they have on the table. They don't know what they don't know, and they don't know that asset exists. They didn't ask us, we didn't provide it, and that data is always on island. So looking at the process, optimizing the process, industrial entitlement, bring it together, will make the transformation happen. That's all from my side. Thank you.
Thank you, Ali. If I may ask the panelists to come and sit up front so we can be bombarded with questions. Right. Who has questions? Yes, there's a question in the back.
Hello, thank you for the presentations. This year, Gartner removed big data from the hype curve. What do you have to say about this?
Can you please repeat the question?
Gartner has a yearly curve that includes the most innovative technologies currently available. Big data was, during the past couple of years, topping this curve. This year, Gartner removed big data from the hype curve.
Yeah.
Here we go. All right. So look, I'm not sure specifically why, but I would guess. All right. Big data has been a trend that started a while back. The question is, how do you use the models on top of it? And there's a lot of trends that are now much more use case specific, that big data became a very generic word. It's just data, and everybody understands big data is there. The question is, how do you structure that data? How do you make sense out of it? And how do you drive value out of that big data? So I would assume Gartner will plug in IoT, Internet of Things, or anything other than that. But big data became a fact of life. There's nothing to be surprised with. The question is, how do you monetize that, and how do you bring value? How do you bring better life into our societies? How you allow governments to transact seamlessly? How do you make secure cities? So the whole point is big data is something that 10 years ago started as a buzzword, and I think now everybody understands, accept that fact. The question is what do you do with it?
The new curve confirms to what you're saying, because at the top now we have AI and IoT. Thank you for your answer.
Pleasure.
No, thank you. Excellent presentation. With an industrial revolution, now what we are seeing, it's the climate change. So it's contributed, aggressively to the climate change. So we are now thinking, putting all these together, trying to solve that problem. And the trend we are seeing now with the technology, there is a set of issues that are coming where the economists are studying it. For example, with automation, are we able to create more job or less job? With the social context of it, behavior, we are seeing a new behavior is coming. So again, like we didn't predict, what, the industrialization going to bring with it, the set of issues which we are facing now. We are going to the 4-degree climate, raise of the temperature of the earth. So also these things, I think we shouldn't be, taking short of it in terms of thinking about it and how trying to mitigate it now, because we don't also want to create another culture which coming, what we call it anti-technology, what we call rhetoric or other these things. So these are, I think, challenges which also need to be looked at it and to be addressed, especially from the big firm which is really pushing this data and technology in order to utilize cost and efficiency and also market accessibility.
Yeah, well said, and we agree with you, and I think this is a statement. I'll give you examples that are trending in this direction, but obviously not at the scale you mentioned. In Saudi Arabia, the Ministry of Health typically published a statistics book, and the statistics book looks at data for 10 years. And this is static, and we're not able to conclude necessarily decisions from it. They put it into a tool, a simulation tool, and it allows them to do what-if analysis, what if. And if you want to look at breast cancer and age of women above 45 in Jeddah versus Riyadh versus Dammam, and map it to the infrastructure of mammos, and they're able to make smart decisions on the campaign and priority and whether they've got the infrastructure needed. If we pivot from that and we look at other tools that exist, we've got a solution now in the US where we look at the forest and probability for a tree to fall down and have an outage somewhere. Just it's a probability pattern. And obviously if we scale that and we combine all the different variables and do data modeling and simulation, this can happen as well, and we can predict a pattern of any sort. So more work is needed, and the challenge will be to have a coalition of work, because it's not about an enterprise. So it's an initiative that requires collaboration. And maybe I'll pass it to you, because that's what you're sort of leading, a coalition for a different vertical.
Yeah. I guess the question is very well. It's a very nice question about what is the consequences of unfettered digitization in some sense. And this is something in the GCEL that we really look at is the current path of digitization. If it's only done in the advanced high-income countries, if it's only done in the global 2,000 enterprises that collectively account for 60% of the world's GDP, 2,000 firms do that. Are they going to be the beneficiary of digital economy, or is there a pathway for bringing in over 125 million small, medium enterprises around the world in the mid and low income countries? Can they see the benefits of digitization? If they are able to see that, how can they do that? We can talk about all kinds of fiscal policy, economic policy, monetary policy. They were on their course. We are in fact projecting for the first time the global trade has been on the downward trend after 30 years of monotonic increase. The reason is we exhausted all possible means of extracting efficiencies in advanced countries. So in order for us to make digitization work, there got to be a pathway of bringing in SMEs, mid-low income countries, to benefit from internet, digitization, and the power of analytics that we can offer. And that is a collective call to action for all of us, and that's something that we're very passionate about. And if you don't do that, you will have the divide, the digital divide can tear us apart. And we're seeing the consequences of that in different countries and elections going on. That's a conversation being heard. Has trade led to the well-being of the common middle and low-income people in the countries we're talking about? It hasn't so far.
Can I just add to this on the workforce, on the impact of digitization on the workforce, because I think we're at AUB, it's worthwhile putting that thought and open question here, because most probably you're going to educate the generations to come. Just to give you a statistic, around 2 billion plus jobs will disappear by 2030 because of digitization. And that's Although we believe driverless cars are not there, you can pick up driverless cars now today from Uber in the US. In one state, it's being tested. And in Singapore, they already, a company called Autonomy just launched driverless cars. So, and you can apply this to many. So artificial intelligence will replace, there are today chat bots that you will talk to, and you will think you're talking to an agent, basically. And they will respond, and you will not even know you're talking to a machine. They exist today. So the jobs will shift. My concern is towards my kids. If you tell me what should I advise my kids to work, because the digital divide will hit them hard, I think my reading, when it concerns me, is that humans will be very dependent on their brain capability, because there would be new jobs, but it will require analytical minds, it will require logical mind. Coding becomes a language. It won't become something you study in computer science. It should be in the school curriculum. You need to understand how machine works so you can contribute to that economy. So the concern, all the blue-collar laborers where the poverty exists, is that their jobs will disappear because machines can do a blue-collared work much more efficiently, seamlessly. GE, I don't know if it's GE, but one of the Siemens have a light out full factory, meaning it can operate 24/7, no lights, because machines are operating in it. There are no humans. So the shift is massive, and I think it is real, as you said, like in climate change. This one is very tangible. We can see it today. The question, what can we do to guide our kids and the new generation for a better job opportunity so they're relevant?
What do you do? I'm the CIO and I can't use technology, but your question actually raises an interesting question, which I will pose to you guys. Can we use big data and cognitive analytics to try to answer his question, right? Because that's one of those things where we have enough data, we have enough technology, and maybe unlike the Industrial Revolution, we can use this revolution to help us predict what the problems are so we can anticipate them.
I can give an example that's being done in the region. So one of the government in the GCC, they a lot of money, very small population of locals, so they have jobs of 60,000 seats in a government, and their whole workforce in the country is below 60,000 as locals. So they depend obviously on expats like us living in their city. However, their challenge is they put all their HR data, which is a very boring topic as far as if you look at it from a standard HR, but they put all their HR data on one big platform, and today they're busy running predictive analytics to be able to collaborate on what are the trends, the jobs they need, where their people are failing, so they build the next generation. They're feeding this into the current education system across their school and universities, and then also making sure they bridge the gap at the government level to find where are the gaps. Now, it solves a bit the problem, I think, but we're at the infancy of where we should do and how deep the problem could be.
At the end, analytics, it gives you answer, it gives you some help, but it doesn't make decisions. At the end of the day, we will ask the questions and we will make the decisions. If we would like to solve problems, critical problems in our time, we will collect data, we will ask right questions, and we will be able to solve them better with the big data. I believe that, because it is actually the wisdom part of it. We have the questions, we don't ask the right questions now. We ask to it, just the economical part of it, we focus on it, and we try to get gain. We don't see the big picture at the end of the day. But if we focus on digital divine, we can find new innovations there to extend our capability to those people and help them at the end.
I would like to add to that, which is the prospect of big data informing education and what kind of courses, how we digitize the population comes is the second. The first part is every human being who is capable and productive got to be ready for a digital age. The first is it's a policy question about what kinds of school systems you're going to fund in the future. You got to make digital education in the school level mandatory. Now, once having done the policy breakthrough of bringing people into the digital fold, you can then optimize in terms of what kinds of educational needs, skill gaps, portfolio managements for the economy. You need to start planning for the economy as a whole about what kinds of digital skills are you producing. There, big data can answer. But it's a chicken and egg problem, and I guess it comes down to the will of the people at the ground level and the policymakers coming together to say digital is real, universal digital education must be a right for every citizen. Once you have that will and action, technology can come in and optimize all we need to. But that's a bottleneck now. We haven't crossed that chasm.
One last thing. I was yesterday at BDL Accelerate, and this question goes for Mr. Aboud. And there was an entrepreneur who created an application, Kareem, and now it's booming. It's like, since everybody's talking about Uber and each and every digital transformation conferences, so what do you think about, are you optimistic about this move from the entrepreneurs to really jump into the digital transformation? Because, you know, they are really copying or benchmarking and they are moving to this really fast. So what is your insight about that?
All right, thank you, Manad. Great question. To be honest, I think the opportunity is amazing, and I alluded to that in a joke in my speech that we don't need to wait for the government to pull oil out of a commodity that the price went down, and we can unleash the potential of our human capital in Lebanon in the digital world. Because the beauty of the digital world, there are no limitations. There's no countries, there's no boundaries, and I do agree policy should support, but to be honest, if you want to think of it, innovation goes ahead of any regulation or government. Uber, if they want to think about what was possible and not possible, it would have never happened, because they actually crossed every single, they had, initially the company was called Uber Taxi, or Uber Limo. And the state of California challenged them, and then they said, okay, fine, we'll take out the word taxi and we'll continue with Uber, because we're a data company. And this proves that in our region, with the intellect and education system we've got, we can lead that. I strongly believe that. And if you give the beauty of, a lot of people think because Uber did it, there's no space for us. Actually, do you know why Kareem is successful? It's because they localized the service to the needs.
They can pay in cash, actually, in addition to the credit. Not only you can pay in cash, Uber just started doing, you schedule a cab. Uber never had scheduling before. Kareem started with that because they knew in the region it was a need. I use Kareem, and then Uber is my second choice because they were very relevant to my needs locally. And there are plenty of examples. I don't know if you've read, there's a use case written by HBR, they published it once, Flipkart. You've heard of Flipkart in India? Amazon could not compete with Flipkart. Why? Because Flipkart understand the Indian market. They're Indians, bright guys. They didn't need, they looked at, how do you deliver? They used postal, people on bicycle. They understood that the market required to touch and feel, because an Indian will go down and look at the shop, he wants to see the product. So they provided the product for you and you pay at the door if you like it. So Amazon couldn't compete with that. So there are great examples that this is the time for countries that have the right generation of intellect to play a big role in a digital world, because you cannot consider ourselves underprivileged if we have the right education system. We can innovate out of here. So I'm personally very passionate about this topic. So thank you for the question.
Any other questions? Yeah.
By the way, their valuation is way up. as a company, just worth mentioning.
And we financed it. The first loan to Karim from Masr.
All right. So are you still an investor in, or just a loan?
Well, I mean, just, it was a small money, and this is an interesting story.
Yeah, they're doing very well.
Good evening. I would like to know how much the scale of the projects correlated to the success of these projects in big data. And you said that cheaper to experiment. So cheaper relative to what scale? So are these small and medium enterprises, is it cheaper for them to experiment, or now they can go for ready-made solutions that were developed by bigger giants?
I guess the innovation in SMEs, if they really need access to infrastructure and the tools, if they want SAP HANA to work out their in-memory analytics needed and the massive server farms, it's available on the cloud. So the infrastructure is not the challenge. SMEs are typically not equipped to think like a IT department in their shop. They're usually consumers of the analytics. So for SMEs, the impact of they doing analytic experimentation is not going to be that realistic. But it's the domain of governments, large enterprises to pool, industry associations, regions to come together to pool big data. These are typically a public goods question. They got to collaborate to create big data. If you don't keep data open and unleash it, you're not going to benefit from the big data analytics power. Maybe you can.
Yeah, what I'd like to add, SMEs are critical for any economy to move to a knowledge-based economy. Any big company, when we come to a region, we look at SMEs availability. If we want to localize manufacturing, are they able to produce spare parts in country? If we're going to come and develop apps, do we have an ecosystem of developers that are available? That's one. So governments need to focus on incubations and holding SMEs by the hand and showing them the way. Having said this, in San Francisco, in California, the state of most entrepreneurs and startups, you can have a startup for $10,000, right? And there are a lot of things that can be done. If I link your question to what I just presented, if a company as big as General Electric is deploying multi-tenant Predix Cloud across the globe, and one entrepreneur decides to develop one small app that is on Predix, and if that app is successful for one client in a country, and it needs to be scaled globally, that IP is owned by that entrepreneur, and it can be scaled. And every time we sell it, that entrepreneur is making a lot of money. So it's an ecosystem that needs to work, and big companies like GE have realized that it needs to be about open source. It needs to be about an ecosystem of collaborations. It's not about us innovating within. It's about us innovating for the enterprise and solving for the pain point. And this is where SMEs will come through and will deliver on the promise.
In the past, the competition in this analytics area, you have to build the infrastructure, you have to get all the people, the data analysts, in order to understand the topic, to experiment. Now, it is much easier. You can just rent 1,000 servers for an hour, and then do it on the cloud, and then you release it. So in the economic-wise, cloud and big data is collapsing right now. So they can have the benefit of cloud as SMEs, and they can have the benefit of the tools that all large organizations are using right now. So they can experiment easily.
Any other questions?
I can speak without microphone.
Go ahead. Please, okay. Please, bus.
The train of big data has started its journey a long time ago, and we need to jump in as a government and as SMEs. SMEs from the perspective of micro participation, they have done well, and there's an opportunity. In our country, Lebanon, the main source for SME is the mobile phone. But the real owner of the big data is the government, because let's say the telephone operator, they have loads of information. It doesn't just collect the entries of users. It collects maybe their commutation. So at this level, at the macro level, the big players like GE, like IBM, like Oracle, for how long they have this potential to collaborate and to advertise solutions at this macro level to Lebanon government in order to leverage this big information. And by this way, I understand big data.
From vendor side, actually, we provide our experiences from other governments to every government official that we talk with. We carry out the questions that other governments are taking, like in fraud. Tax department, they are doing fraud. And social security department, they are trying to improve social security of the people in areas of the country. And they are also helping SMEs where to open shop. If they would like to open a shop, they know the data. But it all comes up with the open data, if they have the data. And if they ask that question, if they ask that, okay, we have an intention to help our SMEs, our people, and then we will be asking new questions, and we will be collecting new data if it's not there to answer those questions. And vendors, as the vendors, all of the vendors, we do help government organizations to evaluate that data, to build the infrastructure for the others. That's all we can do, actually. And we are doing it. We give benchmarks. Let's say in fraud, in social security, in health fraud, we know that it's 6.5% fraud. So if the government agency can find 2% fraud on average in the earth, there might be some ways of improvement there. So we talk about it, and then we ask them to think if they can, if they have the data, to improve it. So it goes like this. All these discussions, all these questions should be asked within the government agencies, and we help them to build the solutions, whether it's on-premise or on the cloud. Cloud is, in our region, is not so, the data cannot pass the border, is not possible, but we have solutions on the data center. Oracle provides big data and the client data center, big data appliance or big data solutions as cloud services in the data center of government institutions, so or the other institutions. So we can help on that respect.
Look, I think the best models that we've seen so far in the most advanced, or even Estonia or the new cities, when I say advanced, it doesn't have to be the states, it's too complex when you go to the bigger ones, the smaller ones, is that the partnership between the public and private. Public owns, as public sector, they own a lot of interesting data, all right? And we trust them with our data, theoretically. So they own the data. Now, the best model is when government doesn't think about innovating on that data. The other way around is that they put the data on a platform that is secure, but allows new startups or SMEs to monetize that data to provide a better service. Apply it to Lebanon in the simple example of tourism, and it can do miracles. It can do miracles simply by going through the process of visa immigration, all right? And allow SMEs to sell the tourism of Lebanon using such data and services to the world or the region. And then you can go on in multiple scales in different industries. But that's the best model, and when we look at government agencies, we don't ask them to own the data and operate the data and think how to monetize the data. That would be the worst thing to do. The best thing is that they put that on a federated platform, allow innovation on top of it in a secure manner where you don't expose people's identities and sensitive data, but then allow collaboration on top of that platform, and then the SME market can flourish. This is the best model so far.
Just further on, knowing that this wealth of opportunity is available in our country, my question is, why don't big companies deal with the government as in push marketing way? Do you have your approach to knock on the door of the government to say that we have this opportunity here and there, instead of just saying we are providing help if you want to take it?
I'll try to answer the question. It's critical for the recipient of the solution to be ready, and resistance management will make or break. The best deployments of solutions will not go anywhere if it's not managed to solve burning challenge and delivering output. Having said this, where we spend our energy on culture architects that are ready to leapfrog and committed to the digital transformation, they need to lead at the top, and they need to be convinced that this is solving a pain point for them. And this is when we're going to be successful, because it's not about the technology only, it's about how we bring it together to deliver the outcome. Now, obviously, for specific initiatives in selective governments, it's a two-way. It can be best practice sharing, where a city deployed smart technology and then somebody else heard about it and it becomes cascading effect. That's one way where we've seen it scale. And it can be a specific pain point for a government or department, and they pulled in a consortium to solve it, and then this became a solution. So that's how it starts.
Just want to say thank you for all of you, and also to thank the panelists. But just before you go to break, we have a small token of appreciation for each one of our panelists. Would please Mr. Gigi come by?
Thank you.
Mr. Oakley, please. Okay, sorry. Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you. Mr. Saleh, please. And last but not least, Dr. Parliament, please.
Actually, you're last.
Oh,
we're going to give you a token of appreciation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, and we'll see you in half an hour, right?
Actually, we take a break for half an hour and we come back.